We're a little more than halfway through the month of November, and New Hampshire's Mount Washington Observatory, it's on track for potentially record-breaking month. And we're talking snow without a monster snowstorm that's really impacted the area.
So we're 18 days in the month of November on a month where the mountain receives about 35.5 inches of snow. So far, the observatory has recorded 59.5 inches, nearly 5 feet of snow. Weather observers and interns, they broke out their shovels. They needed to do something, and they call it clearing the precipitation can. That's so they can make sure the measurements are accurate. So that's what we were looking at yesterday. We were wondering what they were doing. So they're clearing the precipitation can. Alexandra Branton was one of them clearing the precipitation can. She's a weather observer with Mount Washington. She's joining us. Hey there, Alexandra. Thanks for joining us this morning. You guys posted that video on Saturday. Since Saturday, Mount Washington, we did the math, has picked up about 17 additional inches. At this rate, we could break the snowiest record for November on Mount Washington. What's the deal? We haven't seen huge snowstorms, have we? It's just been so consistent.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We haven't had any big, huge snowstorm yet this season. But the way the pattern is set up is we're having low pressure systems moving northeast across New England, and they're just kind of resting over the Canadian Maritimes for a while. When that happens, we get moisture wrapping around the periphery of that low pressure system into New England. So those northwesterly winds are picking up moisture from the Great Lakes, from Lake Champlain, from the St. Lawrence River, and just bringing it right to Mount Washington and dropping some upslope snow showers. So that's the persistence we've been seeing.
Yeah, and some of those areas of low pressure became quite strong as they lingered over the Canadian Maritimes. We were looking also back in the history of posts on X from the observatory, because back in October, we were actually below average. The first measurable snow didn't come until October 16th, and you didn't get that first inch of snow until October 21st. So it was a slow buildup, I guess, into getting into November. But I guess for October, we just weren't getting what we needed at 6,300 feet to see some of this tallying up snow.
Yes, that's exactly right. We were really late for our first snow of the season, and actually we were in a pretty historic drought here in New England, and we were about 19 inches below normal for snow in October. So we've definitely made up for that in November. The pattern definitely shifted in our favor if you like snow.
Mount Washington lays claim to having the world's worst weather, and I would imagine that involves winds. Actually, I'm not going to assume that. I know that involves winds. We know that some of the strongest wind gusts have happened at the summit. So how do you know you're accurately measuring the snow? Because the wind-driven snow, that's sometimes the toughest thing to measure when people living, not as high as you're living. I would imagine, though, the wind gets in the way.
Yes, the snow is a really, really hard thing for us to measure here. And actually, when we look at that precipitation can, we have what is called a knifer shield around that precipitation can. That's to help mitigate the effects of blowing snow blowing into that precipitation can. It's not always perfect when our winds are blowing 100 miles per hour, as we regularly see here in the winter. So we do have to estimate precipitation a good bit. And actually, we did put a lot of effort into shoveling out the precipitation can. However, that drift is just so tall that it is interfering with our snow measurements. So we're doing the best that we can up here, but we have gotten some pretty heavy snow over the past couple of days.
I thought I heard, Stephen, you read interns helped.
Yeah.
Put the interns to work. It is quite the experience. How many of you are up there? How many meteorologists are actually up there, in addition to interns that are getting out there and clearing all the equipment?
Yeah, so right now we have 2 meteorologists on staff. We typically have 3 meteorologists on staff, 2 weather observers that work during the day, 1 weather observer that works during the night, and 2 to 3 interns. So any young meteorologists out there looking for an internship, you can find one here at the Mount Washington Observatory. But 3 weather observers, 1 to 3 interns at a time, and we work alternating shifts. So we have the 3 of us that have been up here for a week, and then the next group of 3 will come up for the next week. So it's a week on, week off here schedule.
Well, a great group of minds that live up there for a short time. But when we look at records, because that's what's so fascinating about Mount Washington, before we let you go, the record for the snowiest November, it was set back in 1968. It's 86.6 inches. I did the math. That's a little more than 7 feet of snow. Is it looking like we could very well pace that if we have this storm track with the storms that sort of loiter over the Canadian Maritimes, bring those snow showers? Is it looking like that could very well happen this year?
Yeah, it's a question that we're all asking here too, because weather forecasting models are really struggle to pick up the topographically induced snow that we see here in the White Mountains, which is why it's important that we have meteorologists up here. But if the pattern stays consistent, like it's looking like it potentially could here, we could make a run at that snowiest November. I personally don't think we'll get quite there, but we'll definitely rank in one of the top snowiest Novembers, as we already are. So we're all hoping for it. We would like to see some good ski weather this winter, and we're off to a good start.
Nothing's better than skiing with 100-mile-an-hour wind.
Skiing on a good day.
You fall into the wind if you're going against it. It just props you up.
Got 2 hurricane force.
Okay, so real quickly before we leave you, Alexandra, I feel like we can't check in with you guys up there unless we check in with Nimbus as well, because Nimbus is a cat who lives, well, he's the summit cat. This was the most recent photo that we found that you guys posted from back in October of him enjoying the sun.
Basking
in the sun. Nimbus, we heard, may not like being around some of the wind and colder temperatures.
Yeah, so he'll spend some time up here with us in the weather room in the summer, but the winds are too loud and the windows leak too much cold air for him to want to be up in the weather room in the wintertime. So he's snuggled up in a blanket downstairs in the living quarters right now, enjoying the warmth down there.
I was real concerned yesterday. I was actually talking to my husband. I was like, so our dogs are sleeping a lot more. Should we be worried? No, it's just the time of year. They sort of go into not a hibernation, but they sleep more. So don't worry. Can you imagine that?
I can, actually.
Somehow you sleep less this time of year.
Somehow. Stress of the holidays.
That's right. Hey, thank you for joining us. Glad that we were able to talk about Nimbus as well. Alexandra Branton, Mount Washington Observatory weather observer. We'll be watching those totals to see if we come close to a November record. Thanks, Alexandra.
Yes. Thank you, guys.
All right.